Right. In diplomacy, it's very well known that if you're not on the table, you're not on the menu. Can we say that about the Chinese side, which is not being represented by the President Xi Jinping, but it's Premiere Li Qiang? Well, China's moves have been called deliberate by many. 5 days before the G20, Xi Jinping announced that he was skipping the summit. Premiere Li Qiang was said that he was going to take over. But there's more than what meets the eye clearly here as far as the Chinese are concerned. Xi's absence is going to be the most telling at the summit, much more than Vladimir Putin's absence, which is of course because he worries about being arrested. This will become the second time that the Chinese president is going to miss the G20 summit. Last time it was only during the COVID pandemic. So since then he hasn't really missed any of these global settings. But given this, his foreign minister has not given any reason. Remember, he was there at the BRICS summit just ahead of the G20. So what is keeping Xi Jinping so busy? Well, he's visiting areas worst affected by the floods. Parts of China have faced record rainfall, flooding cities and farmlands, but this happened in July and August, and Xi Jinping did not make any visits until this week. There's also a bit of diplomacy in Xi's schedule. Well, Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro is on a 7-day trip to China. After this, Xi Jinping will be hosting the Zambian president as well between the 10th and the 16th of September, we believe. And is this Xi Jinping sending really a message to India? Well, the Nikkei Asia has reported that there's a lot more to it. A precursor seems to have been this summer's meeting. It is an annual get-together of incumbent and retired leaders of the Chinese Communist Party, and reportedly in this meeting, party elders reprimanded the top leader in ways they had not until now. From politics to economy, Xi was pulled up for everything, it seems. China today is not in its best shape. Its economy is struggling. The real estate sector is in shambles. The youth unemployment rate has worsened to such an extent that Beijing has stopped releasing figures, and geopolitical climate is not particularly in China's favor either. So even though many are seeing Xi's no-show as a snub to the G20 presidency, the decision is more to do with Beijing than New Delhi. Foreign affairs experts say the move has dented Xi's own image as a statesman and denied himself an important multilateral forum. G20 is considered the world's biggest economic forum. It makes up to 60% of the world's population and 80% of the global GDP. So the absence of the leader from the world's second largest economy speaks volumes of where China is at the moment. All right, to talk more about this, I'm now being joined by Andrew K.P. Leung, from Hong Kong, who is a China strategist. Andrew, thank you very much for talking to us indeed. There's so much to talk about when it comes to China. The absence of Xi Jinping, that's in a sense many believe is deliberate. What do you think and what do you make of his absence at the G20?
Well, definitely this is not meant to be a snub on Prime Minister Modi. It is a calibrated response as a result of a combination of factors. I think the most important factor is that the presence of President Biden and then his influence over the agenda of the G20 and in fact his Western allies, they're all anti-China. There is a great deal of hostility towards China at the moment, and then China and the United States are almost at war, with the United States mounting a 360 degrees pushback against China on technology, semiconductors, on Taiwan, on Hong Kong, on the South China Sea, on all fronts. So the atmosphere is not very conducive to the presence of Xi in this forum with the United States and its Western allies. And particularly the host, India, is not exactly a good friend of China either. But President Xi is more than ably represented by the Premiere Li Qiang, who just came back from a very successful meeting with the ASEAN forum, and putting China's proposed agenda on the table and being greatly well received. And in fact, as far as the Global South is concerned, again, the recent BRICS plus summit speaks for itself, whereby a lot of the countries in the developing world are lining up to join the BRICS, in which China has an outsized influence because China's economy is more than the rest of the BRICS combined. And of course, after all, China is the largest trading partner to 128 countries around the world, compared with only 58 to the United States. So I think President Xi is quite confident of his influence in the Global South, but the combination of the a kind of hostile environment, I think, has led to his decision not to appear on this occasion.
Right. I know you say that, but given the fact that the lead up to this, there was, the map controversy between India and China. There was also, of course, a different readout from India and China as to what was discussed and the manner in which it was discussed. The meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping at the BRICS summit. There was also a difference of opinion on who initiated this. Given the tense situation at the border and in the relationship between China and US, as you mentioned, the fact that to come to a multilateral forum like this, sometimes, the pull asides, the pleasantries do impact what's going on. They put a pause on the negativity or the tensions, and there can be, a different position henceforth from that moment on in the conversation, or you think that's not possible, it's better to stay away. And also I'd like to ask you about the joint declaration. We know that Russia is going to oppose it. It's pretty clear that the Chinese side will also oppose the joint communique mentioning Russia with the Ukraine war.
Well, I think that the G20 is supposed to address the most serious problems facing the world. And of course, one of the serious challenge is the Ukraine war. But as far as China's position is concerned, China wants peace rather than war. But then China opposes any unilateral coercive kind of stance or ganging up against Russia's own national interests. And this is, of course, regardless of the fact that Russia and China have been very, very close economic partners even before the war. Now, I think that it's instructive that recently, through another forum, I think in the United Nations, only about a couple of days ago, China proposed a motion calling for an end to the Ukraine war, trying to accelerate the process towards peace. And I think that would be well received. But of course, that the West America and its Western allies would look at this proposal with a great deal of skepticism. In other words, what sort of peace are we going for? Is a peace agreement freezes the gains of Russia through this kind of coercive war on Ukraine. So I think that there are lots of things that at stake. But I think that the wisdom, the diplomacy is to find a form of words so that the principles are preserved. I think there is no doubt that all countries want peace, including the United States, including Ukraine. But I think that the way to go about it is to lay down certain principles. For example, the principles of territorial integrity and so on must be respected.
Right. Andrew, thanks very much indeed for joining us and giving us your perspective on what it means of China's Xi Jinping to be missing this G20 meet. Well, we're completely out of time with that. It's a wrap on this edition of our G20 special coverage. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.